Straight from the edge, it's time for some daytime drama. So over on Y&R, Ray's testimony didn't really help out with Sharon and getting her to see her confession in the best light, I guess. Although it made Ray look incredibly bad, he confessed his love in front of everybody, including his wife out in the courtroom, and obviously that sent a lot of sparks later. So Michael felt that because of Sharon and how Brittany set up with Ray, that the only option for them was to put Victoria on the witness stand. And you know, they put up the video footage to show the kind of physical and mental brutality that JT was capable of, and how he, you know, put his fist into the closet door right next to Victoria's head. And you know, this should have been a pretty big thing for the jury to look at, as far as how serious a problem this was. So obviously Nick and Billy were out watching in the courtroom all of this unfold, and they just, the anger they had knowing that JT had done this to Nick's sister and Billy's ex-wife, that they just wanted to just annihilate him for what he'd done, and rightly so. And I mean, just the way Joshua and Jason were able to express that, you know, on their faces, I mean, you really felt that they were completely, you know, showing that range of emotion you'd have. And, you know, furthermore, when they, you know, I think they had a glance either in the courtroom or later, of course, outside, they were saying, I'll take him first, or you'll take him first. So they want to get in line in front of each other, and Nick was saying to get the first crack at him. But you know, the conflict of interest never was brought up. JT was working for Kristina, or for Christine, and obviously Paul, and that is such a damning piece of evidence, because he was doing things that were obviously abusive, and he's trying to kill Victor, and these things should have been brought up by Michael or Brittany, and it never seemed to come into fruition. So you had two people with conflict of interest. You had Ray, who was in love with Sharon and didn't really try to assist them when they tried to come forward with the fact they lied, and then obviously JT, who was infiltrating and then not really following the law. So anyway, Sharon, so they ended up having the jury decide they were guilty, and obviously they are guilty of something, but not necessarily of murder, since there's no body, and you know, you you don't have the evidence there other than their testimonies, I guess. And so, but they did end up finding them all guilty, and the judge sentenced them shortly thereafter. And she gave Sharon 3 years, she gave Victoria 10 years, and Nikki 30 years. And obviously, we know JT's out there, and so it's, yeah, it's just a complete mess. But I mean, this is the way the story's supposed to go. So Nick obviously is furious because he knows JT's out there, and he gets Billy, and he's like, all right, he's out there, let's try to figure out how to entrap him and get the ladies out. And at a further point, they do corner Ray at his apartment above the coffee shop, because he's the one that got this kind of rolling in that mess, and he's an upstanding, law and order type guy who doesn't like to see injustice. So, and he's obviously smitten with Sharon, and so he's gonna help him out. And the plan they devise is basically that Ray had a little dirt on some of these prison transport people and was able to get them to pull over and open the doors for Nikki, Victoria, and Sharon. And they're, of course, freaking out because they don't want to be seen as escaping. But then Nick shows up right then and says, all right, come on. And they end up taking him to the Abbott cabin as a place until they can entrap JT, use him as bait. And they come up with a pretty good plan where they find a bug at Victoria's house, and Billy and Nick are playing out a a fake little scenario of where they're going to take him on the run, and hoping that JT obviously is listening, which he is. And so they end up leaving the cabin to do that, and Ray is also having to return because Lola is going to have surgery to get the liver from Summer. And so the three of them are back in town, and Nick comes down to the police station, and Ray is getting confronted by Kristina because, basically these three women are on the loose, and he's supposed to be trying to figure out what's going on. Plus, she basically almost accuses him of aiding and abetting because he's in love with Sharon, which she backs off. But then Nick shows up, and basically they're gonna head back out, and it seems like Victor comes because he hears from Phyllis. So basically Victor and Phyllis were at the bar at the club, and they saw on the video thing up above that the three of them had escaped. And of course he left there. Well, first, before that, he didn't even want to talk to Phyllis. He just said, no. And he's still obviously upset, and their feud is ongoing. But she's trying to convince him that, rightly so, that she tried to help the ladies out, and she's gonna find a way to get back in good graces here and help everyone out. So of course Victor goes to the police station, and he's freaking out. Well, Victor's not freaking out, but he's upset and loud about what's going on, and he's confronting Ray for all of this mess. And so of course Nick's trying to hold his dad back, and Ray ends up taking them into the interrogation room and basically discloses with Nick what the plan is, and that they're at the cabin. And of course Victor's like, well, we got to get there. They try calling. Of course, meanwhile, JT is in the cabin. You'd seen him at the end of one of the episodes where he's looking in the window, and of course we're like, oh, we saw that coming. And the three of them are there, and the two security guards he's knocked out, and he's got their weapons. And he sees the phone sitting on the table. He ends up crushing the phone, and they realize that he's there. But anyway, so Nick and Victor and Ray are like, well, we got to get down there and try to figure out what's going on, see if they're okay, because it sounds like the plan isn't going according to what they thought, because JT hasn't showed up at the airport or whatever destination they had set up. And so yeah, so the three women, they, you know, grab weapons around the house or the cabin, and I think Victoria grabbed a knife, and I'm not sure what Sharon grabbed, maybe a bat or some kind of stick or something. And then, of course, you had Nikki, and the writers did such a great job here. So she's looking around, and she grabs the poker by the fireplace, which it's a gas fireplace, so it doesn't make any sense. But so you know, it's fitting and funny, and I know they had a lot of fun setting this all up. So of course they're looking outside, and they tell JT, yell out at him that they've got a gun, and they go back in the house, and of course he's already in there, and he's got a gun, they don't. And he tells them to get tied, you know, he had some zip ties, and of course he's having some kind of like head issue, because remember, Nikki had hit him on the head, and so he never went to a hospital or whatever, and he's having some kind of trauma from that, where he's not thinking even as good as he was before that. And so she you know, she's trying to say, just take me, let them go and everything, and he's like, well, I've been listening to everything you've been saying for months and months and months, and he knows all their excuses of why they did what, because, you know, he had all surveillance equipment, and he's listening in on everything, and, you know, he may have other connections to what's going on. So he's just having a complete other, you know, he was expecting to have some satisfaction out of this, but he just doesn't even know what to do, I think, at this point. And he, of course, hits the gas, and it starts leaking in the room, and then he passes out, and the three of them are on the couch tied up, and they had been obviously trying to get him to break him free, but they're starting to pass out now, and then hopefully a fire doesn't start here. But the other three are coming to help. So Lola woke up after 1 month, you know, from Valentine's Day. She had, you know, the whole incident, and the first person she got to see, you know, was Kyle, you know, and that they got to connect, you know. She wasn't sure what had happened, and he was trying to be let it in a little bit softly, I guess. And, you know, he's trying to conceal the fact that he's married Summer, and even though he's in love with Lola. And so of course he did have the wedding, and they did consummate the marriage, and he does have you know, a love and attraction to Summer, and had things played out, you know, without this Lola thing, you know, they might have had a deeper connection, but this is kind of making it to where he's in love with two women, and he's obviously very worried about Summer, because he doesn't want this to hurt her, because she's giving up half her liver to Lola. And you know, he has a lot of reason to be concerned about both of them going in. And obviously Abby is onto it with Arturo, but he's saying, you know, don't mess with this, because basically Lola's life is at risk too, and so, you know, don't get it all unsettled first. And, you know, he's worried about his sister. So Abby, you know, she does this great job of confronting Kyle, and just trying to show, you know, you are in love with Lola, and she knows her I guess it would be her cousin, no, niece. Her niece you know, had set this all up and kind of cornered him. But remember, Kyle had offered this as a way to get Summer to do it. So it kind of is on him what had happened. And anyway, so Melissa, I mean, you did a great job there. And girl, you have an amazing figure. Just absolutely beautiful, just all the way around, just how you handled all that. And, you know, you're just bringing so much to the show for energy. And it's going to be interesting with Arturo. Essentially, it looks like next week is going to be in trouble with her, you know, having the affair again. And, yeah, so it looks like Carrie is probably undercover for Ashley and playing Jack against Phyllis, and we'll see what ends up happening with Jabot, you know, going forward. Yeah, it looks like she's a triple agent there, so we'll see. Yeah, so that looks like that's about all there is for now, till next week. And then on GH, the writers are just totally knocking it out of the park. I mean, you had a couple episodes, a lot of good jokes laid in there. Looks like, you know, you have Shelley Altman, Chris Van Etten, Lucky Gold, Scott Sickles, Elizabeth Corte, and Kate Hall on the second day. So you had Jason and Laura heading up to Niagara Falls to stop Ryan and save Ava, and they know and they know that Carly is in the trunk, and well, not they don't know about the trunk, but they know that Carly is kidnapped, and so of course they're trying to figure out where to go in the Niagara area. And of course you had Cameron had bumped into Ryan at the inn, and of course, you know, both of them are really supposed to be there. And so Ryan's like, oh, what do he wanting to maybe knock him off, but he's seeing what's up first. And so of course Cameron says, oh, you know, he's there with the friends, and you know, he's not really supposed to be there. And then Ryan realizes, oh, okay, well, he can just say, well, it's just our little secret, of course. And they part ways. But of course Cameron, when he gets to the hospital after Oscar had a seizure, he is talking to his mom and confessing that he had, you know, not come home and all that. And he had said that he'd bumped into Ryan. And this is after they find out that Ryan back at Port Charles is actually is still alive and is a serial killer, and that Franco is innocent. And so his mom, you know, is telling Cameron that Franco is innocent, and that Ryan was the killer. And he didn't quite understand at first, but realized that, oh, that Kevin it was an imposter and all that. So he knew that he was there at the inn. So of course Elizabeth calls Jason, or I think she called Laura. But so of course she's saying where Cameron had seen them. And so this is where the writers come in. So Jason hears all of this information about the inn and everything. And he calls up Spinelli and he says to get into the mainframe at the inn. And so this is barely a step up from a motel in some respects. But, you know, they have a mainframe. I mean, they most likely wouldn't even have a server. They probably have a computer there. But, so he's telling Spinelli to get into the mainframe. And so, of course, the writers are just jabbing at all these other shows that just go over the top with the whole hacking thing. I mean, I laughed so hard. First, I had to watch it again. But anyway, you know, it could have been Steve that came up with the line. I don't know. But if it was the writer, Steve, or the director, looks like the director was Denise Van Cleve. I don't know. So whoever came up with it, absolutely hilarious. And you know, you guys, just poking fun at all that kind of stuff. Great work. So let's see. The next episode was even funnier in different ways. So you had Alexis having her I guess daydream about Julie and Jerome, and just that whole I guess you call it a Lion King sort of dream. And I mean, Nancy, you're just one of the sexiest ladies ever, and how you and Julian just did that whole scene, very believable. You know, just that raw kind of expression of love, I guess. And you know, if whoever the writers or whatnot that played into getting all that set up, you know, just good job there. And at first you're thinking it's Julian, but you know, his temperament wasn't right. It was more like the old Julian, and of course they went over that later because Finn came over to help Alexis because she was feeling like she needed a drink because she had this daydream about Julian. And yeah, I mean, writers are doing real well there. You know, it looks like the director was Fidu Javier or Xavier. On that same episode, you had Sasha and Michael together at Charlie's, and so he's, you know, describing what he does when Sasha had asked. Of course, he's not one to be braggadocious, but you know, he does say he's CEO of a multinational corporation, and you know, he doesn't need a stiff drink to get through the day, and you know, kind of just, and then so he says, well, you want to get a stiff drink? And then he backs it up and says, well, maybe not the stiff part. I mean, the writers, you guys had a lot of fun there with that. Just Michael, you know, getting to have some more fun. He's had so many serious relationships up to this point. It's nice to have something a little more laid back. And of course, he doesn't know Sasha is not really who she says she is, but he still likes her nonetheless. And they both basically said they liked each other, and then she ran off, and he's like, what happened there? But yeah, so just a lot of fun there. Okay, so Jason, of course, when they get to the inn, you know, he's tracking them down, and Ryan had dumped Carly off at the bottom of a dam or ravine or something like that, and had taken Ava. They're going to go across the border because he wants to marry her, you know, in Canada, and they're going across a footbridge, and of course, Ava had, you know, tried to slow him down and gone, what's going on here? You know, this doesn't make sense for you. You're having a mental breakdown. And she, as much as she has animosity towards Carly, she doesn't want her to really be seriously hurt because she's already hurt her and her family so much already. And of course, Sonny would never forgive her if something happened. So Ryan and her are crossing the bridge, and Jason and Laura have caught up to them, and he tells them to stop. Jason tells them to stop. He's got his gun drawn, and Ryan turns around and he shoots Ryan in the arm, and he goes down. And of course, Ava is just completely freaking out, thinking that she thinks it's Kevin, obviously. And what are you doing? And so they're saying get away from him because obviously it's Ryan, and so they're trying to describe or say that he's Ryan, and she's not believing them, of course. And so Ava does say that where Carly is at, and this is going to be a big thing for her character, because she has gone out of her way to help, even though she didn't really have to. So Jason, of course, is still got the gun out, and Ryan knows he's completely cornered, so he's gonna go. He jumps off and tries to pull Ava off, and of course Jason runs and just lunges out and grabs towards where Ava's at. It seems like she grabbed on to something and then he pulled her up, but Ryan went down into the cold water, and we'll see what happens with him. Probably show back up. But so of course Jason runs off to help Carly, and Carly had been trying to get up once before and had fallen all the way back down, and so she tried again, and of course she's right at the very top of the ledge, and she's about ready to fall a second time, and then boom, that hand comes out. Jason's right there. He pulls her up, and you're seeing it coming, and it's beautiful. And she said she was not shocked to see him, and just he's always there when he needs to be to help her out. So it was just beautiful. And she but she was kind of curious, how'd you find me? He said he'd always be there. But yeah, that was really cool. And of course she got taken to the hospital, the same hospital that Oscar was at. And so Jason had seen Jocelyn in the main floor or something, and they didn't know that they were there, either one of them. And he said, well, your mom's upstairs. And so she did go up and see her, and of course she's finding out that Carly's pregnant, and shocked, and but happy, because they've had so much trauma in their family, and there might be another little one coming. And so of course Kim and Drew are concerned about Oscar, and they don't want him to go to the falls, and so Drew ends up talking to the helicopter pilot and gets them to take the four of them. So you got Jocelyn, Oscar, Drew, and Kim, and they take a ride to Niagara Falls to see it in the emergency helicopter, which is kind of cool, and then go back to GH. What else? So Jason, has to head back because they got all this business going on with Shiloh, and Kristina, they got to get her away from this cult, and Sam is getting deeper into convincing Shiloh that she's gonna be a part of all of this. And of course you also have Chase. So he's dating Willow, the teacher, and at some point they do show for a quick second that she has the Dawn of Day sigil tattoo or whatever. And so you're knowing that the baby she had is most likely Shiloh's, and they confirm that later. So she had tried to escape this cult and move to Port Charles, and so she learns basically from, so let's backtrack just a little bit. So Molly had come back into the story, and she's confronting her sister, Kristina, you know, like, this, you're cutting out, you know, your best friend, and now you're trying to cut out your family, I guess, and, you know, this is a cult, and this is just the quintessential Molly. It's just nice to see they brought that side of her character right into the forefront of the story. It's nice to see, and, you know, she's right on there confronting her sister because she cares about her and loves her. And she's even going to Sam and her mother, Alexis, to put some extra pressure on her. And, you know, she's doing what she thinks she needs to do. So, of course, Jason's watching all of this unfold. And he, you know, he knows that Sam's undercover, so he has to be somewhat careful how he tells Molly. And it ends up that the whole Sasha Michael thing is going on at the same time in Charlie's, and so of course Michael sees this, and he's like, that's his sister, so he wants to get involved too. And so Jason's kind of trying to let them know, you know, you don't want to like scare her off too much, try to not make her back into the DOD more, and they won't be able to get her out because they're basically trying to uncover that it's a cult, and he's not giving away everything, but he's trying to. They're both on the case in their own way, and so yeah, we'll see how that goes. So of course, going back to Willow now. So, Michael is trying to talk to Chase about this a little bit, because he knows that it's a problem. You know, the detective can work different angles and try to find out more information about Dawn of Day and what it's all about. And so, of course, Willow overhears. She's there at the bar, a floating rib, and she drops the glasses, and they go to try to see what's wrong. And so she hears the whole story about Kristina, and she's like, you need to get her out of there. And they're like, kind of like, okay. And they're not they're not expressing that they realize she might know more. And of course, she is just completely freaking out because she knows Shiloh's back in town. And so she's like, she's got to get out of town. She runs back to pack all of her stuff, and then of course say that she has to basically resign at school. And so while that's occurring, you have well, Nina Reeves comes in, and basically they're having a confrontation, and Willow and her have this really good exchange, and shortly thereafter that, you know, she's saying, I'm leaving, you don't have to worry about me as a teacher anymore, and you know, you got more problems, and the next teacher will basically show you that you have the same problems. So after that, Shiloh, so he had overheard, well, I need to backtrack just a little bit. So Shiloh is talking to Kristina when she's all upset about having cut out all these people out of her life, and he's basically kind of applauding it to some extent. And he tells her, you know, you can come into the inner circle and be part of the upper level of the, the cult. And she's like, well, what are you talking about? I thought this is an open, everyone, knows everything about everything. And it's like, well, there's a secret. And so basically he tells her, that to really be part of the upper echelon of this club or Dawn of Day, that she needs to tell her innermost secret she's never told anyone before. So essentially it's a way that somebody can be blackmailed into conforming into their group. And, there's a lot like Nexium. And so she doesn't obviously know about the fact that there's nefarious things in this cult. Doesn't even know it's a cult. And the tattoos obviously as one way to mark their the people that are involved in their organization. And so all of that's coming into the forefront. Ryder's obviously right on top of this. And so Shiloh is there, and Kristina is talking about all this, and then of course Michael comes, and so they have to stop with this whole giving up your innermost secret. And Michael, of course, is trying to not be confrontational, and he's really good about riding that line of he's the go-to guy to be responsible and get people out of problems. And so Kristina knows that, and they go outside. Of course, Shiloh overhears the fact that Willow had said this, and so he does end up going right to the school and confront Willow, get right up in her face, and just totally not quite abusive, but being physically imposing and just totally wrong on so many levels. And both of those actors just completely played off the scene correctly, and you felt that distress. And so of course he's wanting her back, and he's saying there's no consequences and whatnot for her leaving, and she's saying no way, I'm out of here, like, and whatnot. And she had somehow gotten a message out to Chase, and Chase came in. So he opens the door, and he's right there, and he just total, like, he's gonna be there to help her in whatever way he can to get the Shiloh character out of there. And of course Shiloh just totally trying to act like he is possession, that Willow's his possession, and he even touches the bottom of her chin, and it's just totally disgusting the way he is. And so of course he's gone, and Chase is like, he just lays it out there. He knows exactly everything we know, and because he's a good detective, he'd caught all the verbal and nonverbal communication she'd had at the different locations, and knew that this guy was no good and that she wouldn't have contacted him unless it was a problem. So he's like, I realize this is the father of that kid that you had given up for adoption, and I'm going to help you in any way that I possibly can, and just let me help, because obviously that's his girlfriend at the moment, and he wants to do what he can. So you also have Cameron realizing what Franco had done to save their family, and essentially apologize for thinking the worst of him. And even though obviously it's well deserved, Franco's done things, and Elizabeth is seeing this, and of course she's angry with Franco for not trusting her with this, but he couldn't, because he didn't want to put any of them in danger. And so it was just really nice to see how that all played out. Okay, so Sonny decides to go to Turkey, and he goes with Robert Scorpio to try to save Dante, or figure out where he's at, because of course Lulu was stabbed by Ryan and nearly died, and Dante needs to come home. Whatever's going on, he's undercover, just finish off the job, get him back home. And they have a couple weeks, I think, where they played down there in Turkey, and Sonny ends up getting in with the help of a younger kind of kid on the streets that knows all the info on everybody, and he gets in, and of course Dante's undercover, and he pretends to still be working for the bad guy, and he shoots Sonny in the arm to show his loyalty to the cartel type deal or whatever. And Sonny, you know, he realizes what's up, and they end up putting Sonny in this little cell in the basement, and Dante comes down, and he's like, what are you doing? You know, like, I'm trying to get this thing taken care of so that it's protect our family and all this stuff. And of course Sonny is saying, well, Lulu's been attacked. He thinks by Franco because he hasn't been updated on the Ryan thing. And so they're like, all right, well, we got to get out of here. And Sonny comes up with a plan that you pretend I'm dead, you know, of course, falls over on the ground. The guard comes, they knock him out, take the clothes. Dante walks up with Sonny behind him in the guard's clothes. They're about ready to leave. The kid, you know, he's trying to help out Sonny. He ends up getting caught by the other guards. They bring him in, they're gonna kill him. So of course Sonny's like, he ain't having none of that. He opens fire on on the henchman, and so they're, you know, they have their gunfight, and the kid ends up getting back to them. You know, Dante runs after the bad guy and ends up killing him because the guy tries to shoot at him first. And so I guess problem solved in a roundabout way. And so they go back in, and then of course Robert Scarvio shows up to clean up with the rest of his spies, and you know, wait till the gunfight's over. But I guess that's, you know, being safe. So, and then of course Lulu's sitting in her house, and she hears somebody trying to open the door to get in, and she's trying to call the police, and then Dante shows up in the house, and she's just totally ecstatic, and you know, they consummate their love, and just beautiful to see the two of them back together. And I mean, it's just nice to have Dominic back. I mean, you bring so much to the show, you and Lulu together, just great characters, great love interests, just super happy where this is all going. All right, so let's move on over to Bold. So Flo ended up going to the party, and, you know, she ran into Hope there. So Hope came in with Liam, and she was obviously not expecting to see her. She'd seen her at the Tiki Bar, and you know, she's like, well, how does all this connect? Because basically she didn't know Wyatt's brother was Liam, and then, you know, all the connections there, and she thought she was just meeting Wyatt and Sally. And so of course she's like shaking from this realization, and Hope's kind of like, wow, how is this happening? Like, I just met you, and you're the mother of Phoebe and all of this. And so Flo is really close to like breaking down and telling the truth that she needs to do. You know, her moral compass is totally kicking in. She's so close, and she kind of realizes, though, at some point how Hope and everyone maybe aren't quite ready for the information, and she realizes how this secret coming out might not be as easy as she thinks, I guess. And but she's at a really good spot because the four of them were there, and it really would have been a good opportunity for her to come forward and tell the truth. But she doesn't end up doing that. And of course there's a picture taken by Wyatt, and Flo is in the picture, and Zoe sees it, and of course is freaking out, and she's having you know, Zoe and Xander are having their love connection going on. And so he's like, what's going on here? Why are you leaving? And it ends up that Zoe does go after Flo to try to stop her from telling the secret. And back at the apartment that Reese has, of course, Flo is there, and she's saying, we've got to tell the secret. You need to bring this secret out. You know, they didn't know all the facts, and that Reese was the one that really did the crime. And Flo was saying even if she did get into trouble with the law, it was worth it because Hope is so depressed. She doesn't want to have kids anymore, and because she's had 2 losses, she thinks. And she just is devastated by, and she knows that Hope needs to know that Phoebe is Beth. And so she's finally got Zoe to realize that they need to tell the truth. And they're just having a great cry session, and the 2 actresses totally dominated there. I mean, just really connected emotionally to the way that it would be if you were involved in that, I guess, and that they didn't really want to be complicit in this crime that had happened, and more so just helping Hope out because she's such an amazing person and she needs to have her child back. They obviously realize that Steffi is getting attached, and you know, we'll see how that all plays out. But oh, and then Reese, of course, right when they're about ready to go out the door, he comes in and starts working both of them and trying to convince them that no, they need to continue to lie. And you know, Wayne Brady's such a warm person. It's hard to see him doing these sort of I guess he's a warm type person drawing into this world in a you know, you're doing a dark thing, and so you're worried, like, is this character actually going to hurt Flo? And you're worried like something will happen to her in the meantime. And you know, he's playing that kind of like you're not sure, but you can see the genuine nice aspects of the character that he's portraying, but yet he's done this horrible thing to save his daughter, and we'll see how it all plays out. But he convinces Zoe that the best course is to keep it a secret, and then she ends up, of course, backtracking, and Flo's just like, oh my goodness. And of course he leaves, and they just let it go for now. So Thomas is back with Douglas because Caroline has passed away in New York, and it sounds like it was a stroke or something of that type. And it looks like Lindsay's moved over to Days, and I'll have to check that out at some point. Her character over there. Yeah, everyone's completely devastated, obviously. Carolyn's been a huge part of, obviously, the Spencer, you know, she's Spencer, and everything that went down right before she left with Sally and Thomas, and Bill had, you know, gotten her involved in this whole fake thing saying she was dying, and then she ends up dying, and so Thomas had moved over that lie, and then even though he'd found out that it was fake, he still stayed, and you know, they wanted to raise Douglas together as parents, even though it turns out that they never really became a couple again after he broke up with Sally a second time, I think. And but yeah, sad to see her go, but all the characters showing tons of love with each other, and coming together. You know, Sally felt really out of place because of this whole thing, and she wasn't sure what to do, but Wyatt, of course, is cousins with Caroline, and so, you know, he just said be there for Thomas, yeah. And so you also have Bill is devastated over, he's, you know, turned a new leaf, and now he feels all this guilt over what happened to her and the end. And basically everyone, Thomas included, said that, you know, she loved you, and she's not mad at the end about all of that. And yeah, so you had Taylor basically oversees Hope helping Douglas through, you know, losing his mother, and she's obviously just lost Beth, she thinks, and so they're connecting. She's lost a daughter and he's lost a mother, and they're able to comfort each other. And so Taylor is watching this, and, you know, she's seen it as a good thing, but she's also, the wheels are turning, because she's trying to, of course, break up she's trying to break up Hope and Liam so that Liam will go back to Steffi. And of course she tells Ridge about this, and of course Ridge is just like thinking, how can you exploit this? You know, you have 2 people dead, and you're worried about your daughter, and, you know, he's kind of seeing how selfish it is, but he's realizing that you know, he does want that too, but he realizes that it's wrong. But of course Taylor is, you know, just doing what she does to get him to see the benefits for their family, and that really Hope's, in her mind, would be better off with helping Douglas and, I guess, Thomas, which is her son. So she ends up kissing Ridge, and of course right at that moment you see Brooke opening the door. She's back from her trip to Europe, and she's just, you know, she waits to see how far it will go, and of course Ridge pushes off Taylor, and so she's, you know, realizing that it was Taylor that had instigated this. And so she of course waits for Ridge to leave, and then she comes in and she expresses her condolences to Taylor, and she knows that, she says that basically, I know when people are in mourning, they do things that are a little out of character, or maybe well, she's going to say inappropriate, because you were kissing my husband, and that we're not going down this road again. And boy, she let her know, like, this ain't going to happen. And she didn't make it seem like it was Ridge's, necessarily what he had done, but it was more Taylor. And even though he hadn't stopped her, and he should have, so yeah, it looks like this week's gonna be a ton of interesting new fun stuff. So anyway, tons of drops out there. I think we passed over 3,100, so keep researching.